If I hadn't stepped outside that morning, just 5 seconds later, I would have missed him. The dog that changed everything. Summer of 1990. The air in Willow Creek buzzed with cicadas and smelled like pine needles baking under the sun. I was 11, a freckled boy named Eli Bennett, with knobby knees, sandy hair, and a world no bigger than our leaning wooden cabin at the end of Maple Road. After my father died of a heart attack 2 years earlier, it was just Mom and me, scraping by, penny to penny. I did odd jobs around town, patched my clothes with fishing line, and learned early that grief doesn't knock politely. Then, the dog came. Summer of 1990. The air in Willow Creek buzzed with cicadas and smelled like pine needles baking under the sun. I was 11, a freckled boy named Eli Bennett, with knobby knees, sandy hair, and a world no bigger than our leaning wooden cabin at the end of Maple Road. After my father died of a heart attack 2 years earlier, it was just Mom and me, scraping by, penny to penny. I did odd jobs around town, patched my clothes with fishing line, and learned early that grief doesn't knock politely. Then, the dog came. At 12, my anger began boiling over. I hated the silence left by Dad, the long hours Mom worked, the sneers of kids who mocked my threadbare shirts. I'd escape to the old barn and punch haystacks until my fists ached. Shadow always followed, head tilted, eyes calm. No judgment, just presence. One night, with bruised knuckles and a heavier heart than I knew what to do with, I whispered, "I miss him so much it hurts." Shadow placed his head on my knee. In his quiet warmth, something inside me unknotted. He wasn't just a dog. He was my keeper of secrets, my quiet mirror. School was a battlefield. They called me dumpster kid. I came home with busted lips more times than I could count. But Shadow was always there at the gate, tail wagging like a metronome of faith. "Eli," his eyes seemed to say, "you're more than enough." At 14, Mom's cough worsened. I took extra shifts at the feed store, hauling sacks twice my weight. We barely made rent. Shadow got thinner, giving me his scraps without hesitation. Then came the storm. Friday, April 2nd, 1993. The sky turned purple-black. Wind screamed through the trees. The creek overflowed, swallowing our garden. The barn roof trembled. The power cut. I was alone. Shadow whimpered beside me, ears flat, sensing what I didn't yet know. Grabbing a flashlight, I ran to the barn. Dad's toolbox was still in there, his last relic. Wind clawed at my face. Shadow barked at the shadows, pacing beside me like a sentry. Then, crack, a crossbeam above us split loose. I froze, but Shadow didn't. He lunged, rammed into me, knocking me out of the way. The beam crashed down behind us. I scrambled back to him. Blood soaked his side. "Shadow!" I screamed, gathering him into my arms. I stitched him up with Mom's sewing kit, hands trembling, prayers whispered. He survived, but limped ever since. A small price for saving my life. At 16, I dropped out to support Mom, who was diagnosed with lung cancer. Shadow stayed by her bedside, a silent guardian. At 18, I joined the Marines. I knelt before Shadow, whispering, "Take care of her for me." He wagged his tail once, but his eyes, they knew I was running from pain. Years passed. Iraq, dust, letters that slowed, then stopped. I came home in 99, hollow and unsure. Shadow was still there, older, slower, cared for by neighbors, but waiting. I dropped to my knees, sobbing into his fur. "I won't leave again." He lived to 14, walked with me to the creek even when every step cost him. When he could no longer rise, I carried him to the vet. It felt like carrying a story I didn't want to end. His eyes, cloudy but kind, never left mine. "You were the best part of my life," I whispered as he slipped away. I buried him under the willow tree, carved his name into a smooth stone. Shadow, my constant. Now I'm 45, a father to a daughter named Lily. We live in a modest house near Atlanta. I fix engines, build dollhouses. Last spring, Lily found a stray, gray fur, one ear flopped, eyes golden as autumn. She named him Shadow. He sleeps at my feet as I write this. His breathing is soft, like a lullaby I've known forever. Sometimes we walk to that same willow by the creek. I tell Lily about the first shadow, how loyalty can save you, how some bonds never fade. And as the wind rustles the leaves, I swear I can still feel him there, a shadow in the light.